So the key thing to remember when tackling folds in fabrics and fabrics that, you know, fold and come back on top of each other is that all of the fabric has a little bit of dimension. It's not completely flat. It exists in a four-dimensional space. So what we're going to do is we draw our basic form. In this case, I'm going to use the shoulder of a dress form, but you could think of this as, there we go. You could think of it, weird, cancel, turn, no, cancel that. I'm going to do exactly what they say not to do. Computer in. Yeah, no signal. No signal. Did you get unplugged? It does not look like it. Digital link, maybe. No. That's what I want. Stay there. Cool. Okay. So what I'm going to draw is just like the base of a dress form, but you could also consider it draping over the edge of a couch, a blanket, or a curtain rod. Use your imagination. All right. So I have my form. I like to just have my form sketched underneath whatever I'm drawing, just very lightly. It's going to have to be darker so y'all can see it. And then I'm going to put fabric over this. Having the form already sketched in a 3D shape helps me immensely when I'm doing this, because it gives me an idea about what space already looks like around my fabric. Now I want to drape over the shoulder. The thing that I find helps me add dimension instantly is to imagine the fabric coming from the back of the shoulder. I'll do my imagination lines and dots. And then when it folds, it actually wraps up and around. So what I can see is this up and around wrap. This is very exaggerated, but not so much if it's a thicker fabric. Then I can draw in my line to where that comes down. If I have another layer of fabric coming up on top of this, it's going to have to go up and over now this line, not my shoulder line, because the thickness of this fabric is already there. So it's going to come up and go down. This now in here, I have the opportunity to, I can, you know, shade that in as that negative space and leave a little bit here to indicate the depth of my fabric. The thinner it is, the more I will kind of indicate that negative space. And then also here where there is a fold and this top fabric blocks light coming down onto my bottom fabric, I will have a little shading as well. So I can come in and shade that out. Once I get those in, that's usually when I come back in and I do my highlights. So it'll just be a little bit more shadow. And I'll look at the fabric. Does it have any sort of, I'm going to use Ramsey's crushed velvet just because that's a really cool texture and it's a difficult one to tackle, so you're going to get a little demo here. So if I have my folds coming in, and then let's see, this one I want to have been kind of under that, making things up here. What I usually do for something like crushed velvet that has a very even field, well, actually, crushed velvet doesn't, but I'm going to put in an even field to start with, which is just this even gray tone. I might need just a little bit more. Also, when you're folding, your fabric that stretches out is all going to come to some sort of gathering point, and at that gathering point you want a little bit of curve there as well. Otherwise it's going to look like that fabric just stops very flat, and in this case it does kind of fold in. So getting my basic forms and then kind of a neutral field of color, probably around my 5. Maybe darker, that velvet's pretty dark. I guess tone, not color. Alright, so I have this neutralness. Now I do want to add in some darker patches where the crushed velvet, the pile is not reflecting the light. So I'm going to look for those shapes, and I'm just going to do essentially a scumbling technique, except for instead of these little circles, or a stippling technique, whichever you want to think of it as, instead of these little circles, I'm just going to go back and forth with like little stray hatches, just going around, and I'm just going to kind of look at where the light is not reflecting and add those in. Scumble, scumble. Right now they don't have to look so much like anything other than these darker areas. Adding in the shadow. Think about how big they are relatively. What direction do they kind of flow? Is there any pattern to it? Not so much in the crushed velvet. And then I will come back in and use my little circles to blend them in, getting those darker shapes. And then I will come in with my kneaded eraser and pick up a few highlights as well. So come back in, choose a few places, often right next to the dark places in a crushed velvet, to add in my highlights. I could also use the corner of my triangle eraser, but now I have represented a whole range of both dark and light that gives me some idea of the fabric beneath it, or the fabric that I'm trying to communicate about. That it has this kind of uneven surface pile. So just keeping in mind that there's dimension when you're wrapping it, it needs to sit over top of the layer beneath it. That's all going to gather to a point, and there's going to be curvature there as well. And then getting the surface correct after I've gotten all the lines and forms in.
How big and large did you want us to scale them, and did you want us to have them on the same page?
They do not necessarily need to be on the same page. You could do a page per if you wanted to do 2 on a page. It's kind of up to you for your scale. I want you to decide based off of the level of detail in your fabric.
Okay. And that's what you're grading is points-wise, with the details and the folds. And
yep. I'm looking at your attention to detail in the form, as well as the specific fabric, how it reflects light, how it folds, the thickness of it. You know, if it's a lot thicker material, this fold's going to be a lot more defined than a thinner material. Making those cross observations between your different fabrics. And so literally for fashion design, if you're drawing your fabric and what you have is this little swatch over a shoulder, and this is kind of what you have, if I completed the rest of this being draped down, that's okay. I just want to give you guys the chance to look at those folds, light and shadow on these specific fabrics, but have them draped in a way that you might come across someday in a garment versus just like folding them and looking at them flat on a desk. You start getting a feel then for what things look like when they have pleats, and you can start imagining them instead of having to reference them 100% of the time. Elaborate?
Okay, now that's you, Paul.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that is dope.
So now, and this is just about working in steps. So getting in my basic forms, using my blending stump to get to a middle ground. If you have toned paper, this step gets taken care of for you. But then you need something to do highlights with, so you win some, you lose some. I kind of want the underside of this fabric to be much more and you can mix up techniques in one drawing. For example, I was using the scumbling in the front side of this velvet, but I'm using some just loose hatching in the back side to indicate that this side has a different texture. It actually has a knit texture, but I don't want to go through and try to indicate that because the velvet's really the star of the show here, not the back side of the fabric. So come back in, scumble my dark spots in. And if I could just do value studies in pencil all day and make a living as an artist, I would. But I'm also kind of weird. What's very funny is if you're in like art school, drawing itself is not considered like a high art. It's just the art that you learn to do all the other art. It's a skill. It's not really like an art within and of itself. I would highly challenge that because I think having good skill with like pen and pencil and ink is like extremely, some of the most impressive work I've ever seen has been in people's sketchbooks done in, you know, a number 2 pencil and an eraser. And you can roll up your own paper tortillons or use like a paper towel to smudge. I don't know. My drawing professor at UNL like was in an exhibit one time and just had this like super layered dark graphite circle, and I won't say that I understood that, but it was cool. But it was almost like painting with graphite at that point. But drawing is where the ideas begin. Yeah.
How are these?
Oh, those are looking nice. This one especially is nice. sheer fabric.
I hope the sheer was like what
Mhm.
the goal was.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And part of it is developing your own, like, individual language for, like, how am I communicating sheer. So this is good where you have some of the shading over top, but you still see that form beneath. Have you drawn a lot of anime in your life?
Yeah.
Yeah. People tend to, like, develop, like, really nice, like, torsos and forms when like, developing a lot of anime. So I also just, like, I know a bunch of artists that also draw, like, manga and stuff. So, and that I'd like, I know you. I, like, never got into it as a kid because, I don't know, my parents treated comic books like they were, like, junk food, which is hilarious for, like, a kid who loves art. Is it a quick question or not? Okay. Just make a note of that. Just be very, whoopsie. Yeah. I might, that's extremely small. Yeah, I would even do like a little bit of like pinstripes or something. Yes. So that I make sure that I look close enough and don't get yourself. That's a very nicely shaded silver. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. Not hair sparks.
So, go now.
So, the main purpose of like this was to cut it off, just a little better.
Okay.
So like, is it cool that I have
Oh, yeah. Yeah. If you're like focusing on up here,
Yeah,
and
that
you
was
just kind of
the
like let it
point,
fade
was
off.
just to focus
Yeah.
on the top.
Yeah. Don't think that you have to have like a full head to toe Gregory.
Okay. That answers me.
Yeah. So like this is acceptable for one of your fabric things, like just like a partial drape.
Oh, okay.
What I want to see is that
I have these
it doesn't have to be
garment.
it doesn't have to be like an actual garment.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's my other question.
Oh yeah.
Does this work for beauty?
Yeah.
Is that the reflection?
Yeah. You might think about the scale when you draw it, and maybe like reimagining the scale a little smaller.
Yeah.
But
I was
yeah,
just thinking
basically
one
adding
bit
in
for,
that
like,
reflection.
The reflections
Mhm.
of like, how they would hit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fine.
So I can always just add more.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll look like a little weird if you draw it at scale, but it's fine.
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't know how much like beaded fabric we even had back there.
None.
So. None?
None.
Okay.
Fun fact. There's none in there.
There's none in there. Cool.
We got a lot of rope.
You can also, for fashion students, if you're trying to do that beaded fabric, if you look up that fabric on Mood and go to like the picture where they have it draped, you could use that.
Cool.
If you wanted to. Since we don't apparently have any, I'll have to look and see if I have anything in my stash to bring in.
Oh, does this work for sheer?
Yeah. As long as you're able to like,
See through it?
yeah.
Nice. Nice, nice, nice.
Oh, I didn't stop recording this. I'll have to trim that video.